killed in a bar in Port Hope, Ontario. 6 men were convicted of conspiracy and murder, but no one ever proved who fired the fatal shots or why. Tonight's guest believes justice misfired. The author of Conspiracy of Brothers, he is Mick Lowe.
All right, panel, you're going to have to shift gears mightily for our next story. It's national. 2 minutes to get our guest story. Alan, would you start the game, please?
National. Is it a political story?
No.
Not at all. Health, science, education, those fields.
No.
Sports or entertainment.
No.
Farming.
No.
You're not a Western Canadian.
No.
Are you a Central Canadian?
Yes.
You're from Ontario,
Correct?
and you're about 48 years old.
No.
No.
No, you're older.
No.
You're younger.
Yes.
That pins it down, Betty. All yours.
Is this a science story?
No.
Is medicine involved?
No.
Is religion involved?
No.
Try crime, Betty.
Is crime involved?
Yes.
All right, crime. Does this have anything to do with crimes that have been committed by people who have been resident in halfway houses?
No.
No, it's not that kind.
Can I take a
It's-
stab here?
All right, do.
Did you used to work in a bank?
No. No.
Are you a biker?
No.
Sorry, Betty.
Okay. The crime that we are after, is this a crime that took place within the last 5 years?
No.
A long time ago?
Longer than 5, but not too long
Try
ago.
it, try
As a
it.
crime story, did it involve a prison itself?
No.
It's not a prison break.
No.
Are you an embezzler?
No.
Are you a...
He's not necessarily a criminal. Innocent until proven guilty, Jack.
Well, I was going to ask him if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Jack, I
If he
feel
was a
badly
reporter.
because you've almost you're almost hoist by your own petard. You were close with one of your thoughts earlier.
Well, my only thought earlier was a biker. It was a mass murder of some kind.
Is murder involved here at all?
Yes, it is.
Murder is involved. Murder of more than one person.
Oh,
Is this
No.
the
Demeter
Olson
case.
story? The Olson
Olson.
story
No,
of him
no.
asking...
No, this is
No.
Are you a
Ontario.
cop?
Demeter.
No.
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 Are you a policeman?
No.
No.
You mind if I ask a question? Just thought I'd like to ask one question on this program.
Well, I'm only here now and again,
Please.
so
Is there
forgive me.
more than 10 people killed?
Nope.
No. One single murder, right, Mr.
That's
Challenger?
one single
yeah,
murder.
Actually, the bell is gone. But you were close. A biker is involved. Satan's riders railroaded in subsequent trial. Writer Mick Lowe is our guest. I'll give you 50%, Jack. And we'll be back with Mick Lowe in just a moment, but first we'd ask you to watch this, please.
Members of a rival motorcycle gang, the Satan's Choice. The jury agreed and sent 6 men away for a total of 90 years on charges of conspiracy and murder. One of those men, as proved by OPP wiretap records, wasn't even in town where the shooting took place, a fact never revealed at the trial. A Canadian journalist suggests the real conspirators were the police forces, waging war on Canada's motorcycle gangs. Please welcome the author of Conspiracy of Brothers, Mick Lowe.
Mr. Lowe, are all these people still in jail?
2 are for first-degree murder. They'll be doing 25 years each, and they'll be eligible for parole in the year 2003.
Unless something happens as a result of your book. The only evidence, I guess, we have that this was a miscarriage of justice is what you say in your book. Is that right?
Well, I try to report all the facts that I was able to uncover and let the reader decide what it was.
How long has the book been out?
It's a couple of weeks.
Have you had any reaction from the authorities?
No, I left Ontario on Monday, and I understood a number of the police involved in the book were reading it over the Easter weekend, so I haven't heard yet.
So nobody sued you for
Not yet.
for anything. Do you think there will be any kind of investigation or hearing as a result of this?
I hope there will be, in 2 ways. One, this is an unsolved murder, officially. All of the people convicted on the record at the end of the trial, on the evidence, were not the gunman. That was clear on the Crown evidence. But they were considered to be aiding and abetting. The man who I believe was really the murderer testified at the trial and confessed on the witness stand, but no one believed him. So we have an unsolved murder, and secondly, a number of highly questionable police practices that went in the investigation before the trial began.
Now, your book, I gather, says that the police took really the law into their own hands and tried to blacken the names of some of those motorcycle guys who were innocent of anything except riding motorcycles.
Well, their names don't have to be black, and their names are black, and sometimes with good reason. But
Yeah.
I document in the book what I call like a dirty, secret little war that's been going on in Ontario and a number of provinces in Canada for 20 years now between police forces and motorcycle clubs.
Well, the motorcycle clubs are supposed to be in the drug industry. They're supposed to be in the drug racket.
They're supposed to be in all kinds of things, and I made a study of the media coverage of the past 20 years of these groups, and one of the things that struck me the most was that almost all of the material published is based on police intelligence sources. And I learned, as I got to know people in some of these clubs, to take it with a grain of salt. The bikers themselves say, look, often the police have a hidden agenda when they're making statements about us. It might be to get more money, more overtime, more men, materiel, what have you. My personal feeling is the truth about them is somewhere between what the police say and what the bikers themselves say.
Alan?
Well, they're certainly not exaggerated in Quebec, where there's lots of evidence of bikers murdering one another, dropping them in the river, cement overshoes, all that sort of stuff.
Another of the things that I learned is that you have to distinguish between U.S. and Canadian clubs, and certainly the scene in Quebec and in the rest of the country as well. That's right.
So they really are a threat in Quebec.
Well, a threat. I'm not sure who they're a threat to. I think they're mainly a threat to each other at this point. And it's a very paranoid lifestyle. And on the one hand, the guy who puts a patch on his back, it's like he's putting a bullseye on his back. And on the one hand, he's concerned about the police, the heat as they call it. But on the other hand, there's so many wars going on and so many vendettas within the motorcycle world, they don't know where the next shot's going to be coming from.
Well, the man who ordered the crackdown on the bikers in Ontario was Warren McMurtry when he was Attorney General there.
That's
He's
correct.
now Canadian High Commissioner in London, and we think he's going to run for the Tories in the next election, which is going to be held Webster in the spring of '89.
Oh, thank you very much.
Did you interview McMurtry on this?
No, he was in England, but I did discover that 6 weeks before this trial began, he called a news conference at Queen's Park and said that he intended to crack down on bikers and that they would be given the longest possible sentences anytime they were convicted of a crime. That was while these guys were in jail waiting for their trial to begin. The trial itself was the longest murder trial at that time in Canadian legal history.
Betty?
What set you on this particular story? Because you've covered all kinds of things.
All of these men have maintained their innocence from day one. One of them, a guy named Gary Como, had written letters to journalists, MPs, church groups, human rights groups, protesting his innocence for years. In 1985, one of his letters happened across my desk, contained some documents that he'd managed to acquire while in prison. I went to the library, learned about the story, and I called one of the defense lawyers, a fairly distinguished criminal lawyer in Ontario, to see if this guy was on the level at all, if it was even worth going to Kingston to interview him. And this lawyer said that the case was one of the worst that he'd ever had, that his client was innocent, in his opinion, that so many things had gone wrong at that trial, there wasn't a week went by that he didn't think about his client being in jail. But he said, he has to do the time and I don't. But he said the thing was a miscarriage, if you will, from beginning to end.
May I ask you what appeals have been gone through since the jury found these men, having had the evidence, guilty, it says here, on charges of conspiracy as well as murder? What appeals have gone through?
They were convicted of first-degree murder. At the Ontario Court of Appeal, tapes surfaced, police transcripts, through sheer coincidence, that had been in the possession of the police since the night of the murder, which placed one of the men who'd already done 2 years and 4 months for second-degree murder 200 kilometers away in Kitchener, far, far from the crime. And he'd said that, even took the witness stand at the trial to say
What did
that.
the appeal court decide?
The appeal court heard the tapes and said, this guy goes free, we'll give him another trial. They rejected all of the other appeals, and at the Supreme Court, the same thing happened. So their appeals are exhausted.
The Supreme Court of Canada, too?
Yes.
In other words, the highest courts in the land have looked at the evidence and obviously taken the usual kind of chilly but accurate view of it. Maybe you're chasing some kind of will-o'-the-wisp. Maybe you've been brainwashed by the bikers.
There are a lot of unanswered questions. At the Supreme Court, we know this much. One of the lawyers, for Gary Como, as a matter of fact, never got to the court. He missed the court appearance. He'd learned that he was dying of terminal cancer, and as one of the other lawyers told me, we're talking the most distinguished criminal lawyers in Toronto now, handled the appeals. He went back to his hotel and climbed into a Coke spoon didn't appear in court. So this guy who's doing 25 years went unrepresented in the Supreme Court. We know that much.
Mick, I wish we had more time, but as you've mentioned yourself, you've, to the best of your ability, put down the facts in your book, Conspiracy of Brothers, and you leave it up to the reader. You're aware, of course, that the image of the bikers isn't that
No, and in many
isn't that
cases,
popular.
rightfully so.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thanks for being on the show, Mick.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, that's just about our time for this program from Vancouver. Jack Webster, thank you not only for being with us
Alan
tonight.
has just donated me one of his striped shirts.
Has he? Well, on your next appearance on Front Page, we'll look forward to seeing it. Thank you, Jack and panel, and thank you for being with us. We'll look for you next week at this same time. Bye for now.
We certainly welcome your suggestions for stories and challengers. Write to us at Front Page Challenge, Post Office Box 500, Station A, Toronto, Ontario, M5W1E6. Now this is Bernard Cowan saying good night from Vancouver.